Good evening and welcome to tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals virtual meeting.
I'm gonna mute.
You are all here tonight seeking relief from the Smithtown zoning ordinances, and it's our job to try to help you achieve the relief you are requesting whenever possible. It's up to you to provide this board with precise and accurate information so we can make a decision based on the facts presented. Excuse me. This board must consider the 5 area variance considerations in order to render a decision, and they are as follows. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. Number 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. Number 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the board, shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the variance. Procedures for tonight's meeting. Cases will be called in the order they are advertised. After your case is announced by Mr. Donadio, the moderator will connect you to the meeting so you can present your case to the board. Once you have completed your presentation, if anyone on the board or in the planning department has any questions, they will be asked. Then any interested party who would like to speak on your case will be given one opportunity to do so. Then the applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to any questions and concerns, after which the case will be closed. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted concerning your case. You can contact the planning department tomorrow after 12 p.m. for the status of your case. We do have one adjournment for tonight, and that is case 18663 125 West Main Street, LLC. That has been adjourned to April 12th. All right, Blaise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first case on the agenda, case number 18637, Tara Martinez, 1 Whitney Gate, Smithtown. The location of the property is the northwest corner of Whitney Gate and Edgewood Avenue. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the front yard setback on Whitney Gate from 50 feet to 10 feet for an existing 6-foot PVC fence.
Could I have the applicant, please?
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Can you just state your name for the record, please?
Sure, it's Tara Martinez.
Okay, Tara. Are you going to present your case tonight?
Sure.
Okay, fine. Go right ahead.
Okay, so when we moved to the house, the property pretty much had 90% of a fence already up. So all we did was pretty much actually close it off, and we apologize, we weren't aware that we needed this. So the fence was pretty much already there on the front on Whitney Gate. There was already a fence on Edgewood that they had the variance for. So you could see there's wood, sorry, I'm blocking it. There's wood fencing where that tree is going all the way up to Edgewood. So we just put that double white, closing it off there, going up towards the house. So that's the new part. So it's just really closing it off. The rest was already there. So we just closed it off because we have a dog and a baby. And that's really all we did to close off the property.
All right. We were at your house yesterday, just doing a site visit.
Yeah.
We noticed in the back you have a sports court.
Yes, that was from the
Okay.
previous owners. They had a permit for that.
And you have a 10-foot high chain link fence around it?
That was from the previous owners as well. That was all permitted by them. They went through all of that. There's permits for that.
Well, in the town of Smithtown, a 10-foot high fence is not allowed.
When I went to, I mean, again, this was all previous to our purchasing the home. But when I had gone to deal with all of this, they said all of that had been permitted prior to us buying the home.
Okay. It's just around the basketball court. Now, is that a permanent fence or is it a movable fence?
Which one?
Around the basketball court, the 10-foot high.
To be honest with you, I have no idea. I think it's movable. I don't know. It's not a permanent, like it's not fixed in the ground. It's kind of like a loose. I've honestly really never even examined it much. I don't know. We've only lived here a few months. I don't know much about it.
Okay, fine.
We
Thank you.
didn't put it up.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Lanning?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just to point out to the board, I don't know what the previous approval was for this property. We'd have to contact the building department, take a look at the records and see if there's any previous BZA cases that also approved the existing wooden fence along Edgewood Avenue. However, I did have a conversation with the building director a while back after this case was first submitted to our department. And the building director explained to me exactly how the ordinance works for 6-foot fence in a front yard on a corner property. You are permitted to have a 6-foot fence. The existing ordinances, you are permitted to have an existing 6-foot fence in one front yard, setback 10 feet from your property line. However, the fence cannot extend into the other required front yard. So in the case of, this house here, if you're looking at the survey on the screen, the area that's dashed in red should actually be even with the side of the house facing Edgewood Avenue. It should not extend past the face of the house. And that is the building director's definition of how fencing setbacks work in the zoning ordinance.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
If you would like to speak about a case, press the raise hand button under the reactions tab at the bottom of the screen. And at the moment, I'm not seeing any hands raised, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Could I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved. Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18638, Penalotis and Lillian Coravivos, 71 Boban Drive, Wisconsin. The location of the property is the south side of Boban Drive, 421 feet east of Roy Drive. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to permit environmentally sensitive land to be altered where depth of groundwater is less than 10 feet for a proposed 18-foot by 36-foot in-ground swimming pool.
Can I have the applicant, please?
My name is Joseph Damiano. I'm the swimming pool installer for the job.
Do you have power of attorney?
I believe so.
Or is the applicant here?
We are here.
The applicant's here?
Yes.
Okay. Sir, could you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. This is Peter and Lillian Coravivos, legal name Panayiotis, and we're at 71 Boban Drive in Wisconsin.
Great. Would you like this gentleman to speak on your behalf?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Sir,
Thank you.
Can you introduce yourself, state your name, spell your last name so we get it correct for the record, and give your address, please?
My name is Joseph Damiano. It's Domiano. My home address is 6 Riviera Court, Wading River, New York, 11792.
Thank you. Go ahead.
What we are looking for is permission to install an in-ground swimming pool with the proper setbacks. We are in an area that was zoned, I guess, for high water table. So we had the area checked, test holes, measured it out, and due to the depth of the swimming pool that's going to be built, we will not be going anywhere near that water table. So it's not something that's affecting the installation whatsoever.
What was the depth of the test hole when you hit water?
Test hole they hit at 7'6".
All right, thank you.
Yeah, we're not putting the diving board on the pool. We're only going down 6 foot deep.
All right. Okay, thank you.
So welcome.
Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Once again, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand. Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'm seeing no hands raised.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second,
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye.
aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18665, Taryn Cowan, 144 Hayrick Lane, Comac. The location of the property is the west side of Hayrick Lane, 495 feet north of Scholar Lane. The property is split zoned R21 and R43. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum side yard from 16 feet to 11 feet, to reduce the total side yards from 34 feet to 27 feet for a proposed 128 square foot shed. To permit the alteration of environmentally sensitive land, steep slopes in excess of 15%, to permit construction within 10 feet of slopes greater than 25% for proposed retaining walls, increase the maximum permitted paving in the required rear yard from 25% to 43% for a proposed 2,925 square foot sports court.
Could I have the applicant, please?
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Michael Rant from North Coast Civil, representing the owners of 144 Hayrick Lane.
Do you have power of attorney?
I believe the owners should be on.
Oh, the owners are here?
I believe so.
Okay, I would need them first.
Okay.
Mr. and Mrs. Cowan, are you there?
Maybe they might have been getting on late. I don't know if there's a possible to hold this over till later in the evening. I can get the owners on the call.
Okay, we could do that, Mike.
All right,
Well,
thank you.
you know, let us know when you have them, and then we'll put you right on the next case.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Blaze, you want to move to the next case?
Certainly. The next case on the agenda is case number 18666, Chris Hoffman, 7 4th Street, Wisconsin. The location of the property is the north side of 4th Street, 100 feet east of Shenandoah Boulevard. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to permit environmentally sensitive land, depth of groundwater less than 10 feet to be altered, for a proposed 16-foot by 32-foot in-ground swimming pool.
Can I have the applicant, please?
Here. You are muted. How do you do that?
Oh. What? No, it should.
Can you hear me?
Chris?
Oh, we
Chris
can hear
Hoffman?
you.
Yes,
Okay,
Chris
fine.
Hoffman.
Okay. Are you going to present your case, Chris?
No. Pool Factions, Joe will be presenting for us.
Okay, fine. Joe, are you available?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Joe, again, could you state your name, spell your last name so we get it correct for the record, and your address, please?
Joseph Damiano, IANO, residing at 6 Riviera Court, Wading River, New York, 11792.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm the owner of Pool Action Swimming Pools, and I have been hired to perform the work of building an in-ground swimming pool at the Hoffman residence. There's water in the area. We've had a test hole dug by JPM service, and it's not something that's going to inflict on the installation of the swimming pool whatsoever. We're not putting that in the pool, so we're not going down deep enough for this to be a problem.
Again, what was the depth of the test hole?
The test hole they did was 10 foot deep.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
No, that should be it.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not seeing any hands raised.
All right, thank you. Could I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second,
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye.
aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Have a nice evening.
You too.
Are we moving forward or going back to the previous case?
I don't see him there. Let's go forward.
Okay. The next case on the agenda is case number 18667, Michael Conti, 15 Northfield Drive, Fort Salonga. The location of the property is the northwest corner of Northfield Drive and Fieldview Drive. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback on Northfield Drive from 60 feet to 53 feet, to reduce the minimum front yard setback on Fieldview Drive from 60 feet to 35 feet for a proposed 220 square foot front porch and rear one-story, 1,084 square foot addition to the existing one-family home.
Can I have the applicant, please?
Yeah, Mike Conti.
Can everybody else can everybody else who's not on speaking mute, please?
Okay. Are you going to present your case, Mike?
No, I'm going to have Jim DeLuca, my architect, present the case.
Okay, fine. Is Jim on the line?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Jim, again, could you state your name, spell your last name so we get it correct for the record, and give your address, please?
It's James DeLuca, DELUCA, having offices at 477 West Main Street, Huntington, New York.
Thank you.
Excuse me one second to shut that off. Yes, I'm going to be representing the case for Mr. Conti. We have an existing single-family residence. The resident itself has been in the Conti family for a very long time. Michael grew up there. His father has passed on and he wants to renovate the house for his wife and 2 children. The house presently sits with the setback issues on a Fieldview Drive. Presently is only at 32.6 feet from the road. It's kind of a unique piece of land. Having obviously 2 fronts creates the issue itself. And the fact that the terrain itself drops off on the west portion of the property, we'd like to keep the idea of the side loading garage doors, thus needing the property to swing around and still be able to landscape and maintain some kind of retaining wall there that would allow us to not have a problem with erosion or water runoff to the neighbor's property. The front, we are reducing off of Northfield Drive for the concept of a porch, a front porch, to bring some aesthetics to the home. Again, that's a non-habitable space, but it is encroaching into the front yard setback. The house itself has some age. Obviously, we're going to be doing a major renovation to it. We'd like to be able to try to rebuild the house or build the renovation right where it is. It benefits us as far as the property use and the way the terrain of the existing property goes. I know it's close to the side yard there as far as the second front, but the property on the other side of that street does elevate up, and the person's house is pretty high up on the property, and I don't really believe we're going to be causing any kind of visual problem for it. Plus, that side of the house where we are going up, I have a gable that goes away from Field View Drive, so in turn, it's not a three-story feeling to that side elevation. So the roof line itself there is a hip going away from the property line there. There is some existing mature landscaping. Obviously, it's in need of some tender loving care and some trimming. And obviously, we would also want to put some additional screening on the Field View Drive east property line there to give relief for the neighbors and for the property itself. Like I said, the house will be renovated to bring it up to code as far as all the needs of the family that's moving in, and it's the growing family that he has. Property drops off in the back, so relocating or trying to put it somewhere else does become a little bit of an issue. It's a very unique piece of land, and the buildable area itself cuts right through the middle of the house as it exists right now. Now, I don't know how it was originally able to be built unless the zoning changed in that area, but we're dealing with what was built, I believe, in sometime in the 40s.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
The only question I have, Mr. DeLuca, is on the survey here and on the what you had said, you're going with a side entry garage, but I noticed in the elevation it's a front entry. Is it a front entry or a side entry?
I'm sorry, it should have been a side entry. Yeah, we were hoping to go with the side entry at that point. I apologize. I see the elevation was not updated prior to being submitted. That could be addressed. My apologies to you on that.
Okay, I just wanted to know if that was the case. So the elevation at the front won't be cut out like that.
No, it wouldn't. There is a drop off. If you look back at those photos that I had up there is a drop off on that. And the existing garage side is exposed. And there is stepping that's going to have to be modified. There's some stone retaining walls that go up to the front door. Mm-hmm. That elevation of the first floor is going to remain, but we do have to modify the grading in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on the board have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not seeing any hands raised.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Could I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are the Cowens here? I guess not, Blaze. Let's move forward again.
Righty. The next case on the agenda is case number 18669, Chris Pappas, 90 Core Road, Kings Park. The location of the property, the west side of Core Road, 336 feet north of Gilmer Lane. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard from 40 feet to 14 feet, which is existing at 25 feet, to reduce the total side yards from 28 feet to 25 feet, for a proposed 265 square foot front deck.
Can I have the applicant, please?
Here I am. Good evening. Name is Chris Pappas, P-A-P-P-A-S, and the address is 90 Core Road, Kings Park.
Okay.
And I have my expediter as well, Diane Powers Sabino, who will be speaking on my behalf.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Is she here?
She
Yes,
is.
I'm here.
There you go.
I had to unmute me. Hi, good
Okay.
evening. Good evening, members of the board.
Could you state your name, spell your last name, and give your address, please? We get it correct for the record.
Yes, Diane Powers Imbimbo, Imbibo. My address is 769 Pelham Road, 3C, New Rochelle, New York, 10805.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Thank you. So the homeowners are proposing to build this front covered porch that goes along the whole front of the house, extending out 8 feet. This is a pre-existing non-conforming with an existing 25-foot setback versus the required 40. So we are only seeking the additional 8 feet, which is the depth of this front covered porch. So again, to reduce the minimum front yard from the required 40 feet to 14. And again, existing currently at 25. They just would like to have a front covered porch. So when they're, for aesthetics, but also they have young kids. So coming in and out of the house, when it's raining or snowing or, groceries and all of that such. So that is the first part. They are also proposing, I know it's listed as a front deck, but the majority of the deck is actually on the back of the house. Excuse me, it does extend out to the side. So, which brings up the next variance we're seeking, which is to reduce the total side yard from the 28 feet to 25 feet due to the extension of that deck coming out on the side. There is an existing deck currently there so that's being demoed and this new deck is being built. And it is only extending a little further out than what it currently is at this moment. And that's pretty much it. They are doing a second story addition on top of that existing 1 story, but that does not affect anything regarding the variances.
Okay.
It's following the footprint.
All right. Thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
So thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice night. Thank you.
You too. All right, please, you want to go to the next one?
Absolutely. The next case on the agenda is case number 18671, Jonathan Smith and Melissa Sudano, 90 Fulton Boulevard, Comac. The location of the property, the south side of Fulton Boulevard, 501 feet west of Peppermill Court. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum side yard from 16 feet to 2 feet, to reduce the total side yards from 34 feet to 20 feet for an existing 240 square foot shed.
Can I have the applicant, please?
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody. This is Jonathan Smith from 90 Fulton Boulevard, Comac, New York, 11725.
Good evening.
Good evening. I put up a shed, didn't know I needed a permit for it, and I put it in a place where it wouldn't infringe upon anybody's view or any kind of environmental impact. And later found out that I needed a permit for it and it's not in the right spot. It can't be moved. So that's why I'm applying for the variance.
Okay. How high is that shed?
There's plans in there somewhere. I sent in the copy of the plans. If you want to give me a minute, I could look and see. It's no higher. I think the walls are 7 feet. Here we go.
Okay,
The drawings are in there.
okay,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
Okay, there we go. 127 inches.
Um, Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Thank
Is
you,
there
everybody.
anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
I'm not seeing any hands raised right now.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Could I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion
Thank you, Jeff.
carried.
Thank you, everybody.
you.
Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you. Are the Cowans here? Nope. All right, Blaze, let's move forward.
Moving forward, the next case on the agenda, case number 18673, James McHale and Jacqueline DeMarie, 33 Winslow Lane, Smithtown. The location of the property, the east side of Winslow Lane, 362 feet north of Hiawatha Lane. The property is zoned R15. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard from 45 feet to 37 feet for an existing 210 square foot covered front porch, to decrease the minimum setback of a 4-foot high retaining wall from the eastern and northern property lines from 4 feet to 1 foot.
The applicant, please. Is the applicant here? Jeff, do you see the applicant?
No, I don't at the moment.
All right. We'll come back to that one, Blaze, too.
Mr. Chairman, I
What?
see Taryn Cohen is in the process of joining, but it's taking a little bit, so I don't know if she'll be able to connect, but I figured I should mention.
I would need the applicant. There's no power of attorney for this case, so. All right, let's move on, Blaze.
Alrighty.
Oh, we do have a hand raised, Nancy Leonardos.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yes,
Hello?
hello, can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. My name is John Leonardos. I live on the, I guess that's the north side there. So can I say anything now, or do I have to wait around for the applicant?
I need the applicant.
You have to wait until the applicant joins.
Okay.
The applicant doesn't seem to be here, so we're gonna come back.
So I can't voice a concern now, I have to wait?
Yeah, you have to, we have to hear the case first.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
You're quite welcome. Go ahead, Liz.
Alrighty. The next case on the agenda, case number 18668, Britt Miller, care of Paula Miller. The location of the property is on Rose Street in Kings Park, the north side of Rose Street, 186 feet east of St. Johnland Road. The property is zoned NB. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum lot area from 7,500 square feet to 4,000 square feet, to reduce the minimum lot frontage at the setback line from 50 feet to 40 feet, to reduce the minimum front yard from 50 feet to 28 feet, to reduce the required buffer yard setback within the rear yard from 50 feet to 7 feet for a proposed 1,038 square foot, one-story single-family dwelling with a roof over front porch.
Do I have the applicant, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Louis Castellano for the applicant.
Okay, and the power of attorney was submitted, Lou, right?
Yes, everything is handed in.
Okay, fine. Go right ahead.
I'm sure you guys have visited the site. You saw you saw the house next door is exactly the same thing that we're putting up. No different. Blaze, you said 28-foot front, but it's 33.5-foot front yard.
Is that including the roof over a stoop?
Yes, but
I said, am I unmuted?
I'm sorry. We okay?
Yeah. Sorry, Lou. So the 28 feet comes from measuring from the front property line to the roof over stoop.
No problem.
Yeah.
So then that would be correct. We're building a similar to the house that was built next door. We do have a Board of Health approval. It was issued a couple of months ago. We're not looking for anything. We're not looking to change the character of the neighborhood. It's a one-family house with a basement, no garage. It's very similar to what's next door. It was already granted back in 1986, and that's our case for the evening. We hope you look at it kindly.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board? Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No question.
Yeah, Mr. Castellano, do you have the case number for the one that you're referring to?
No, I don't, but it was 1986. It was a CO granted on the house next door in 1986.
You know the size of the lot, the house next door?
Same size, 40 foot.
The owner of that house is here, 19 Rose Street, Andrew Charletta.
Good evening, Andrew.
Good evening.
Tony, you still asking a question, Tony?
No. I just want to know if you had that. I'll see if I can get it from planning.
Okay. Anyone else on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you. No, sir.
Planning?
I actually have one question for Lou. If you can just explain to me, because I don't see it on the survey. One of the variance requests was to reduce the rear yard buffer setback from 50 feet to 7 feet. But on the survey, Matt, can you bring the survey back up? It shows a rear yard of 25 feet. Do you know where this 7 feet is coming from?
No idea, Blaze. It was something from the building department, and I couldn't find out what it was.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application?
Yes, I have a question.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead. Whoever said yes first, go ahead.
Yes, I live 2 houses away from.
One second.
I'm
First,
sorry.
could you introduce yourself?
Certainly.
State your name, spell your last name, so we get it correct for the record, and give your address, please.
Okay, my name is Fred Schoenfeld, SCHOENEF as in Frank, ELD. I live at 23 Rose Street, Smithtown, New York, 11787.
Okay, thank you, Fred.
You're welcome. I do object to it. I mean, the property is very small, and just because something was done in 1984 doesn't make what we're doing now right. The way I look at the size of that property, I could feasibly take my property, split it in 2, and build a house. This is not Queens. We live in a suburb, and I don't want my property values affected by these small lots with the houses. We already live on a very busy street where my property value is affected, and we don't need any more of this.
Okay.
I also second that. I also second that statement.
1 second, please. Thank you, Fred.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anyone else like to speak?
Yes, Andrew Charletta, 19 Rose Street.
Again, could you state your name, spell your last name so we get it correct for the record, and give your address, please?
Andrew Charletta, CIARLETTA, 19 Rose Street.
Thank you.
Yeah, my biggest concern is this house is going to be right on top of my house. I don't know what how far his property would have to be from my house. That's my biggest concern. I'm going to be living in a fishbowl.
Okay.
I mean, from my house, from the side of my house to that fence, I have 4 feet as it is. So I don't know how he's going to be able to put a house next to it also.
Okay. Can you pull up that drawing again, Matt? Is that 7 feet, Lou? I can't really.
5 feet.
5 feet?
7.5 feet.
Oh, I'm sorry, 7.5. So, Andrew, your house, and then it's 4 feet from your house to the fence, and then another 7.5 feet to the proposed house.
Okay, like the other gentleman was saying, I mean, it's a tight property.
Okay.
I got a question for planning. Blaze, on the side yards, it's 7.5 feet. That's not a reduction of the requirement, or is the requirement different for NB?
In NB, the minimum side yard is 5 feet.
And NB is single family residence permitted, or is that a?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Andrew?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Okay, fine. Lou, would you like to respond back?
Yeah, I'd like to thank both neighbors for coming out. I understand the concerns. Andrew, if you're still listening, the 7.5 feet is to the fence. If it would make you more comfortable, Blaze, I believe we can go down to 5 feet on the westerly side and pick up another 2 feet for Andrew.
You are permitted to do that, yeah.
If Andrew, if that would help you, we can go down to 7, we can make it like 9 feet and give us 5.5 on the west side to give you a little more room between your house and ours.
No, I understand. I mean, listen, I understand the process you're going through. It just, you know, it is what it is. I mean, whatever you could do, you could do. It's just a tight lot. It's just a tight lot.
I believe the same size lot you have, right, Andrew?
I think mine might be 50 by 110, or I could be mistaken.
According to the tax map, you're 40 by 100, same as us. But I could be wrong. I don't have a tax map in front of me. But, you know, we try to be good neighbors. You know, we've been building in Smithtown for a long time. If we can accommodate, we'd love to accommodate you to make you happy.
I know, but at this point, I mean, I'm probably going to wind up, because of this, I'm going to wind up selling my house because I don't want to be on top of anybody. But that's my problem. That's not yours. You're just doing what you're doing. You know, I understand.
I appreciate you coming out, and if I can accommodate you by moving it over, I will do that.
Okay.
Thank
you, Lou.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, everyone. I believe Cowan's here.
Yes, correct, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. You want to go back to that case, please?
Yes, I will. Give me one moment. All righty. The next case is case number 18665, Taryn Cowan, 144 Hayrick Lane, Comac. The location of the property is the west side of Hayrick Lane, 495 feet north of Scholar Lane. The property is split zoned R21 and R43. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum side yard from 16 feet to 11 feet, to reduce the total side yards from 34 feet to 27 feet for a proposed 128 square foot shed, to permit the alteration of environmentally sensitive lands, slopes in excess of 15%, to permit construction within 10 feet of slopes that are greater than 25% for proposed retaining walls, to increase the maximum permitted paving in the rear yard from 25% to 43% for proposed 2,925 square foot sports court.
Can I have the applicant, please?
The applicant's here.
Okay, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, my name is Ryan Cowan, last name Cowan. I live at 144 Hayrick in Comac.
Okay, thank you. Would you like this gentleman to speak on your behalf?
Yes, I give him permission to speak on my behalf.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, was it Mike?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you very much for your patience. Good
just
evening, Mr. Chairman.
Reintroduce yourself again, spell your last name so we get it correct, and give your address.
Sure. My name is Michael Rant, R-A-N-T, from North Coast Civil. My office address is 39 West Main Street, Oyster Bay, New York, 11771. Again, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm here this evening representing the owners, and we're seeking approval for the construction of a proposed sports court, retaining walls, and shed in the rear yard of the property. This is a bit of a unique property. It is a fairly deep parcel, and it has a steep slope swath that kind of runs through the middle of it that separates the upper area near the house and a lower flat area in the back of the property. What we're proposing is to construct a sports court on the lower flat portion of the property and a series of steps and retaining walls that would bring us down to that lower portion. This is there's a very common, the neighbor directly to the south has almost the exact same configuration on their property currently. They have the same steep slope through the middle of the property. They have a sports court directly into the rear. You can see in the overhead photo, the sports court at the neighbor to the south is located in the rear of the property. They have a series of retaining walls and steps to make it down to that area, and a swimming pool near the back of the house. Again, what we're proposing is directly in line with what's at that neighbor. In situating the cabana, the shed and the sports court, we did try and hold all of the accessory structure setbacks of 8 feet, which we are maintaining all of those setbacks. The shed itself is located towards the middle of the property, at the upper gradient near the house, again for storage of pool equipment and things of that nature. It's directly adjacent to the pool equipment, which you can see in that photograph. It would not be any closer than the pool equipment. It's actually right in that open area, directly adjacent to the property line. We feel that, again, we've done our best to mitigate the variances by constructing the sports court in the flat area of the property. The lot coverage variance that we're seeking, again, being unique, if you take the 75-foot setback, which is the only area where they take the coverage, that's really the only portion of the property where the sports court is. If you look at the entire backyard, because it is fairly deep, we're actually compliant with the 20% coverage. So the only reason we need the variance is because the sports court is located all the way at the back of the property. The sports court will be screened with evergreen screening along the property line to help minimize any impact to the surrounding properties. We feel that the variances being sought are de minimis in nature, and they will not have any adverse impact due to the fact that the neighbor to the south has the same amenities, and they have not caused any issues or hardship to the surrounding neighbors. If the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Adrian.
Is you have any lighting on this sports court?
The only lighting it would be to code. If whatever the code would allow us, we would provide that illumination.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a fence around this?
There's no proposed fence around the sports court.
Okay, no fence. Okay. And the lighting, that wouldn't be on all night, would it?
No, it would only be used, early evening and dusk with it if they were using the sports court. But again, we would comply with the town's requirements as far as height of the fixtures. It would be dark sky compliant, downward shielded, and whatever the hours of operation that would be allowable, that we would adhere to those regulations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the board have any questions?
No, thank you.
No. Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Good evening now.
Me.
Is James McHale here?
I am, Your Honor, Vincent J. Tremarco. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank
Blaze,
you.
want to go back to that case?
Certainly. The next case on the agenda, case number 18673, James McHale, Jacqueline DeMarie. 33 Winslow Lane, Smithtown. The location of the property is the east side of Winslow Lane, 362 feet north of Hiawatha Lane. The property is zoned R15. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard from 45 feet to 37 feet for an existing 210 square foot covered front porch, to decrease the minimum setback of a 4-foot high retaining wall from the eastern and northern property lines from 4 feet to 1 foot.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. We've submitted the affidavits of posting and mailing to your office, to the planning department office this afternoon. If you look at the survey and the drawing submitted, the proposed extension of the porch is approximately 200 square feet, and the retaining wall is on the looks like the north east corner where the property slopes down. The retaining wall is on my client's property. It's 1 foot away from the line. As the board knows, we have a rule in Smithtown which requires you to be as far away as you are high with certain limitations. We're asking the board to vary that. We still maintain a 1 foot setback from the property line. We don't encroach on the neighbor. We don't feel this would have any impact on adjacent properties or the neighborhood in general. The variance is not substantial. We really can't achieve that benefit by any alternative method. It really has no effect on the environment and the difficulty. There was some work done prior to us applying for permits. We did so, as you can see, the renovation, they've done a beautiful job on the renovation of the house, and we ask the board for its favorable consideration. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
I do. Is there a fence on that retaining wall? And how high is that fence?
No, there isn't a fence.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions from the board?
No, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, planning?
No, thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, we do have one hand raised.
Okay.
Nancy Leonardo.
Okay, Nancy?
Yes, hello, this is John Leonardos. I live next door to the.
Okay, could you just, before you start, could you just introduce yourself, state your name, spell your last name so we get it correct for the record, and your address, please.
Okay, John Leonardos, Linardos. I reside at 31 Winslow Lane in Smithtown.
Okay, thank you, John.
So I have a safety concern. I have an in-ground pool, and that retaining wall is, as stated, 4 feet tall. The fence is 6 feet tall. If you stand on the top of that wall, you can basically step on top of my fence and jump right into my yard. So I'm concerned about safety for children coming over the fence. That's my big concern.
That's basically it. Just that our 6 foot fence is now a 2 foot fence.
Okay. Was that your wife speaking, John?
Oh, yes.
Yes, she's
sorry.
Yes.
Okay, no, it's just for the record, it's Nancy, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was that your only concern, John? The safety, the height of the fence?
Well, yes. I mean, it's a big concern. If you look at the picture there where, well, you can't really tell from that picture, where the men are in the corner is my property line. So you could imagine when someone's standing on top of that wood, they're 2 feet over the top. I mean, I have an in-ground pool, so anyone that comes over my fence has the ability to fall into my pool, and I'm concerned about that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not seeing any more hands.
Okay, fine. Mr. Tramarko, would you like to respond, please?
Yes, I believe that the problem or the concern is not through the entire length of the fence, but as the gentleman said, towards the back where you see the picture of the two men working. I guess, and I'd have to check with my clients, but I don't believe that we would need to, if there were a fence extension on the wall, it would only be at a small portion of the fence in the rear to bring it up as the neighbor says, to make it safe. It wouldn't have to be that entire length of the fence. Maybe if I'm wrong, he could correct me, and I'm sure I could work something out with my client who's listening tonight. Am I correct, Mr. Chairman? Or maybe you could ask the gentleman who just spoke.
John?
Yes,
Did you hear Mr. Tramarko's response?
I did. And I would have to see how far back. I mean, it drops off pretty far. The retaining wall starts probably where the yard drops and slopes off. So I guess it says it's, I don't know, is it 38 feet? I'm not sure where it becomes less than a 4 foot high fence. I mean, what are the requirements for a fence or a pool? Is it 4 feet or 6 feet?
It's 4 feet, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so I guess if you said wherever 4 feet, but if you put a fence up there, then I'm looking at a fence sitting on top of 4 feet. So is that gonna be a 10-foot structure going over the top of my fence?
No, the whole fence and wall would have to equal 4 feet.
So you're gonna put a 4 foot fence on the wall.
I'm not sure of the exact measurements, but we could work with you to make sure that your concerns about the pool and someone jumping over the fence are alleviated. That's all I can say right now without actually, measuring it all. But I'm sure my
Okay.
client would be amenable to working it out. We certainly want to be good neighbors.
Us too. That's fine with me.
Okay,
I'm just concerned about, people ended up in my backyard and drowning in my pool, obviously.
okay, fine. All right, so then you'll work together to come up to a solution that's agreeable to both of you. All right, can I have a motion to close the application, please?
All right, thank you.
Can I have a motion to close the application?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Quite welcome.
I believe that we are up to case number 18672.
That's correct.
All righty. Spiffy's Auto Spa, Comac, Inc. 1103 Jericho Turnpike, Comac. The location of the property is the north side of Jericho Turnpike, 580 feet west of Syracuse Boulevard. The property is zoned WSI. The applicant is requesting a modification of a special exception standard for an existing car wash to relocate and install 15 vacuum stalls, including paving, sonotubes, curbing, and drainage.
Can I have the applicant, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. We've submitted affidavits of posting and mailing to the planning department this afternoon. The car wash, I'm sure you're all familiar with it, is on Jericho Turnpike and almost in Comac, I guess you'd say. The car wash business has now evolved into more self-service than full-service car washes that we saw in the past. This is a minor a variant from the special exception, but as the board well knows, anytime we change a special exception, we have to come back to the board, and the board obviously looks at it to see that we're still conforming with most of the requirements. I believe the planning department recommended approval, and I just want to say that in speaking to my clients, these vacuums that will be installed will be free of charge. They're not the vacuums that you pay for. And even more importantly, there's going to be free air. I don't know, I sure as heck can remember, and I guess some members of the board, when you went to a gas station and you got gas and you filled up your tires, it didn't cost you $1.50, and you had to race like heck to make sure the air got into the tire before the so-called pay-for air ran out. Well, there's going to be free air, which sounds kind of silly, but it's not free now, as I'm sure we all know. So it's not only free vacuuming, but free or accessible air to the people that are using the car wash. So given that, we asked the board for its favorable consideration. You can see from the site plan there was modifications and of the location of the vacuums, and I think the vacuums will also contain the air outlets to fill your tires in the same unit. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No question. No, thank you.
No, thanks.
Planning?
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application?
I am not seeing any hands raised at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
And thank you. Good night.
Good night.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18664, Eric Lipton, 1056 West Jericho Turnpike, Smithtown. The location of the property, the southeast corner of West Jericho Turnpike and Wyandanch Boulevard. The property is zoned WSI. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 50 feet to 39 feet, to reduce the front yard parking setback from 25 feet to 7 feet, to reduce the side yard parking setback from 6 feet to 4 feet, to increase the height of a retaining wall from 6 feet to 11 feet, to permit the alteration of environmentally sensitive land, steep slopes in excess of 15%, to permit construction within 10 feet of slopes greater than 25%, to reduce the minimum parking requirement from 57 to 36 spaces, to eliminate the required truck loading space for a proposed 4,000 square foot one-story addition to an existing 4,085 square foot one-story building.
The applicant, please.
Yes, hi. My name is Herrick, Herrick. Last name Lipton, Lipton. I am the Chief Executive Officer of New Horizon Counseling Center. We are a not-for-profit behavioral health organization licensed by the New York State Office of Mental Health with a long history of being in the Smithtown community. As you know, what we've experienced in the last 2 years with the pandemic and the tremendous needs of the community and the individuals that we treat, from young children to adolescents to adults to geriatrics, we cover the full gamut of the population and the communities that we serve. We are working with an amazing team to present an addition to the existing clinic that is there in order to meet the needs of the community. And as I said, as we know, due to COVID-19, all of us in one way or another have been affected by isolation, depression, anxiety. Some of us have lost loved ones, and we are seeing tremendous needs for this project to be approved. So I would ask that if anyone has any questions, I'm here to support that. We have an amazing team that will present this project.
Hi, members of the board. My name is Pong, P-O-N-G, last name Moy, M-U-I, from Mancini Moy Architecture, located at 222 Middle Country Road, Suite 314, Smithtown, New York, 11787.
Thank you.
I'm here to present the case for the variances for the New Horizon Counseling Center. Pretty much the main reason for all these setbacks and retaining wall variances is because of the property located on the south side of Jericho Turnpike. I'm sure you guys are all aware there's a steep slope that any property on that strip has to contend with going from north to south. So the way we decided to locate the building was pretty much a happy medium between parking and dealing with the setbacks. The 4,000 square foot building that we propose is based on the density allowable by Suffolk County wastewater management. So there is a variance for setbacks because we had to pretty much put the building as far back to accommodate as much parking as we can on the north side of that property. Everything pretty much pertains to a balance between parking and variances.
All right.
So we could, I mean, if the board has any suggestions, or if you guys want to give us a bigger parking relaxation, we could definitely work with you on the setbacks for the parking and setbacks for the retaining wall. That is just pretty much the conclusion that the civil engineer, Danielle, she's actually on the phone call also. We'd be open to suggestions if the board has any concerns or planning department has any concerns.
Okay, thank you. Who else is going to speak?
Danielle Pontieri. Danielle, you there?
Hi, yes, Danielle Pontieri from JPCE Consulting Engineers.
All right, Danielle, can you just state your name, spell your last name so we get it correct for the record? And give
Sure.
your address, please.
First name is Danielle, last name is Pontieri, P-O-N-T-I-E-R-I. And my office is located at 16 Commercial Boulevard, Suite 1A in Medford.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything you'd like to tell us?
I'm really just here to answer any questions that you guys have. You know, like Pong had stated, a lot of this, you know, a lot of the variances are really just based on parking, and because of the, you know, the grading that we're kind of dealing with, that's where the height of those retaining walls come from. It's kind of a balance of how high the retaining walls are going to be or how much parking that we're going to have. So yeah, really just here to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Oh, okay, fine. Thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say one more thing. As pertaining to the rear yard setback, you can see from our elevations that existing building is really tall. It's something that's already there. We're not making it any taller. But I will say the proposed addition that we have on the east side is definitely much lower. We're proposing to keep the grade at that point. So really the rear side of that building, the south side of that building, it's going to be mostly hidden by the grade back there. I just want to reiterate that because I know there's residential properties back there, and their concern might be this towering building. That's the existing building is towering up, but the new addition, you can see from the elevation 4, the new addition is much lower than the existing building.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone?
Yeah, can I ask how many employees you have?
On site, we anticipate having a total of 24 employees. Currently,
24.
yes, currently, due to the pandemic, we have many employees working from home, just like this forum, via televideo, televideo, Zoom, whatever phrase you want to use for it. But we found, especially now that we're hopefully reaching the end of the pandemic, individuals are wanting to come in and meet with others, meet with their therapist, meet with their doctor face to face. So what we tried to do, and I think it's a credit to the Mancini Group and the whole team, we tried to devise a space that is not overbearing for the lot size, but at the same time inviting for the community. One of our core missions, which is our tagline of helping individuals, strengthening communities, and our whole organization, again, being a not-for-profit licensed by New York State, is to help advance the mission and the goals of the community. And we've done a lot of feedback and testing, and let's use the phrase surveys with the existing clients that we work with that come to our programs, specifically the Smithtown Clinic. So we addressed all of those things in thinking about the actual design and layout of this additional space.
My question is the parking. If you have 24 employees, will you be having enough parking for the employees and people who want to come in to see and work with the doctors?
Right, so that's a great question. What happens is with those 24 employees, they're rotated in different times. The clinic is opened from 9 in the morning to certain hours at 9 at night. On Friday, it's only open from 9 to 5. On Saturday, it's only also open 9 to 1. So when we use that number, it's a variation on different times throughout the day. Obviously, we would respectfully request whatever amount of parking you would give is really giving back to the community so that this way more individuals that need services are able to come. But we tried in this presentation to be as respectable and as, not overreaching or overbearing in our request for parking. Keep in mind, the adjacent lot is owned by Verizon, which is an empty lot and will never be built on. So even if we were able to extend the lot line even further for more parking, we would appreciate that. As you can see on this picture, thank you whoever's posting that up, you see that there's an additional lot, and then next to that is another lot, which is the complete auto repair. So there's a large distance between us and, I'll use the phrase, a viable neighbor. But I believe the Mancini Group and the overall team did a great job of not really, requesting too much parking.
I got a couple questions, and it kind of dovetails in with Adrian's concerns. Matt, can you pull up the floor plan again? So how many of those rooms are treatment rooms or I guess offices?
On the new side?
On the entire site.
Right. So I can't count them up. It's a little hard here. You see there's some bathrooms. There's a front desk waiting area. There are a couple of group rooms and a couple additional office rooms. So if I would count it off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 10 additional office rooms for individual therapy. Obviously, there'd be some group rooms. We also do for seniors, where seniors come and get together. So some of the larger rooms is for that function as well. So it's not for individuals, it's actually for groups, which is a nice function that we have.
I get it, and I certainly applaud your mission, but the concern is, I mean, exactly what Adrian's concern is that there's not enough parking on this site for what you're intending to use this building for, and any overflow is going to wind up impacting, since they can't park on Jericho, they're going to be parking up and down Wyandanch, and that's going to have a significant impact on the people that live there. In your experience, I mean, how do you feel 36 parking spaces would be enough to handle all of your employees?
As I tried to describe, what happens is the timing of the sessions and the timing of the groups that are set up are so broken apart between 45 minutes to an hour time slots that there's never that, I'll use the phrase, largesse amount of people that are waiting to go in. So the cars are coming in and then leaving. So there's not, we've been in that facility already for some time. Pre the pandemic, we never had that situation in terms of parking. Even now, adding some more physical rooms will just alleviate a lot of the congestion that's actually going on in the physical space. So to answer it to the best of my ability, and I've been doing this over 30 years in multiple locations, we definitely do not anticipate a parking issue. And we don't specifically push clients to come only at a very specific time. All of our staff are spaced apart at all different hours throughout the day, hour-wise, and also during the week. So you might have, using that number of 24 individuals, they might only come Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And now we've learned, due to the pandemic, that there's always the option of televideo, which means that the client or clients are not necessarily coming into the facility to necessitate those parking spots.
Well,
members of the board, can you bring up the site plan again? In this site plan, in one rendition of the site plan, we had actually, I don't know if you can see, you can't see my mouse, right? So north from the handicap parking stalls, you see where it says LA in the landscape area?
mm-hmm.
We had originally had 4 additional spots that were parallel parking spots that would fit there. If that will help you alleviate some of the concerns, that'll put the variance at, instead of 36, it'll be 40. So if parking is an issue, we could put on the site plan that we land bank 4 additional parking spots in that area. We would just need a bigger variance for the parking in the front.
And I can tell you, we would greatly appreciate it.
I'm having a tough time with this one because do we have a survey or a site plan that shows the building and the addition? Because I don't think it's
actually there. It's just a line where it's super light. Do you see the outline of it right there?
Yeah, I can see it now.
Yeah, it's super light. It is there. I could get you guys a better copy if.
My concern would be, you know, obviously all due respect to this exact use, we're approving something that goes with the site and is there in perpetuity. So while, you know, obviously I hope and expect that you'll be around forever and, you know, certainly providing a great service to the community. If it ever changes, that site is got way too much building for the amount of parking. And I think that just becomes a problem down the road. And I don't know if 40 spaces does it versus 36. I did notice in some of those pictures that you took that there was a lot of ad hoc parking that was made with some gravel and some stanchions, which leads me to believe that the existing building is, you know, starving for parking.
Can I respond to that? Board Member Tanzi, if I'm pronouncing it properly.
Yep.
I really respect your question and your thought process in this. I can tell you that being the CEO for over the last 15 years and being a member of this organization that's been in business since 1981, we are extremely fiscally responsible. And not only that, with our contracts and our licensure with the state, we really anticipate to be there probably for the next 50, even 60, or even 100 years. So your concern about that, and even the fact, and again, I don't need to share my age, I'm in my lower 40s, I anticipate myself being intimately involved in making sure that our organization into my years of retirement for the next 30, 40 years would succeed and be successful. Everything that we've done within all the different regions that we've worked with, if it's Nassau County, Suffolk County, even the New York City areas, we do things in a way to be fiscally responsible and be a very good community member. So to alleviate that concern, just express to you, this is not a fly-by-night kind of thing that we're going to invest all this money and then 2 or 3 years down the road, you're left with some massive building that, like you said, that, would not be, suitable for the community. I can assure you of that.
All right, I have another question. You mentioned that the next lot is Verizon. You have no plans of using that lot for parking, I know.
Absolutely not. I was just trying to demonstrate that we would not be encroaching on the actual neighbor of the complete auto repair. There is additional space there, even if you allowed us to go ahead and extend the parking, even more so. Again, you have to think of the generosity and the thought process of what you guys do is really helping the community that we serve and helping really, sadly, because of what we went through with COVID, at some point, each and every one of us are going to probably need some help because now we're reaching the end of it. And now we're trying to figure out what is the so-called new normal and what is the new ways that we integrate ourselves into this new world. So our goal is to try to maximize as much as possible for the benefit of the community, not for the benefit of ourselves.
Members of the board, what, just so we know, maybe there's something that we can do, what do you think would be, in your opinion, ample amount of parking? What's that number?
Well, I personally, obviously, am not an expert and don't know, but, looking at the size of the building, and just noticing quickly the number of offices that are in there. And obviously, I don't understand your operation. If it was an individual gets an office that they're constantly using and seeing individual clients in that office versus, that office is only used 4 times a week, has a different impact on the parking. But if all of those offices are being occupied at the same time and seeing people at the same time, I don't know that there could be enough parking on this site. And obviously that would be something I would rely on you or a parking expert to tell me that this is how the operation works. This is how we work, because not only is it bad for the adjacent community, obviously it's bad for your operation if people can't park there because they're just going to get frustrated.
Absolutely. And I just want to re-clarify because it's a great point that you're bringing up, and maybe I didn't express it as well. It's exactly the first example that you described where individuals are not coming and we're not filling every single room with all sorts of employees and all sorts of staff. There's more a staggered approach of employment. And we've learned even through this pandemic that a lot of the employment will continue from certain workers working from home via televideo.
Thank you.
So I hope I clarified that, as best as I can to be absolutely clear in your minds and the other board members' minds. Because you are correct, it would be detrimental to us, but more so to the community. And we're not looking to do that. We're looking to help strengthen the community.
Anyone else on the board have any questions?
We did.
Yeah. Is it possible for us to be provided with some sort of schedule of employees and when they'll be working? I mean, you wouldn't have to mention, put people's names down, but if you could provide us with how many,
like an example,
on each day of the week, and what you would expect your flow of clients to be on a daily basis.
So that's a great question. I apologize. I can't see your last name, but I see your first name here not so clearly. Stephen, I believe.
Yes.
Great request. First part, in terms of approximate schedule, we'd be glad to provide. In terms of patient flow or patient, we would not be able to provide, even more so because I believe we're hopefully finishing the tail end of the pandemic. So that would be very difficult. But in terms of the employee side, we'll be glad to share that with you.
But don't you have isn't the opiate epidemic also affecting you?
So I could answer that. And again, this is very important. Right now, even how we're conducting ourselves, a majority of the work is being done via televideo. A real majority. But what we're seeing, and I could say it even for my own self, that people are starting to attend family functions, parties, so on and so forth. People are starting to go back to their doctor in person. They're starting to make those, comfortable decisions without masking, without worrying about social distancing. So, it's a little difficult to actually give you real hardcore numbers. I'm an individual that's very direct, very transparent. If I'm going to give you something, I want to give you something that's accurate. I don't want to just, throw numbers at you and then you say, hey, you told me this, you told me that.
But wouldn't you anticipate that at some point in the future, people are going to go back to what they were normally inclined to do pre-pandemic?
That's a great question. It's a great question. And what are we actually seeing, and what do I personally believe? I believe that now it will no longer be not only in person, it will also be telephonic services, and it'll also be televideo. The fact that we've gone through this pandemic and learned that we can do so much via televideo has made a tremendous difference in people's lives. There are many people that are immobile. There are many people that are just really depressed and they can't get themselves out of their home. And utilizing a platform like we're utilizing has become very, very powerful. So to answer that, I believe the new normal is the 3 pathways that I've described. Some in person, some via telephone, some via televideo.
I have one last question for myself, and I guess it's to Mr. Mui, the architect. I noticed that you said you can put 4 parallel parking spaces along that front property line.
Yeah.
Have you thought of, and do you have any sketches of if you shrunk that front of that addition up by 9 additional feet, and then you could put traditional spaces there? Would that net you out more spaces than 4?
So you're saying sliding the building back?
Correct.
It doesn't, because you have that driveway there. That existing building is in the way. I don't think you'd be able to turn that corner.
Right.
The northeast corner of that existing building would be.
Can you pull the site plan up again, Matt?
Yeah, you see where that curb is?
Correct.
And those dimensions are where it says 5.4 feet and 5.8 feet.
Yeah.
So by sliding that down, you're probably actually going to lose.
Yeah, got it.
Again, like the whole positioning of this building is really to try to maximize parking. The only other thing that we could do in addition to those 4 additional spots in the front, we could, on the southeast corner, you see where it says 22.7?
Yep.
In the southeast corner of that property, we could make that wall go straight and then tie back into the existing wall. It's just then the variance for that side wall, we're trying to keep that side wall as low as possible. If you guys want me to try to maximize the parking, I could take that south wall, bring it straight across, and I do believe I'd be able to squeeze an additional 2 spots there, but we would just need a bigger variance for that retaining wall on the east side.
So currently the wall heads east off the building to that mark that says 22.7, then goes.
It'll go straight across towards the property line and then go north from that instead of jogging like that. We're just trying to keep the retaining wall as small as possible.
Yeah.
Danielle, you want to chime in? That should be possible, right?
Yes, yeah, we actually had it like that in one of our iterations, but it makes that wall, substantially higher by a couple feet.
Right, so it goes from 11 to 13?
I think so. It's kind of hard to see on this site plan, but because that back grade is, it's steep and it goes up pretty quick. So that back grade is at like 106, 108. So it was just making that wall pretty tall.
Yeah, we're just trying to comply with the rule about the retaining wall being as high as it is from the property line. So we're just trying to make it a little bit better in that case. But if your main concern is parking, we could definitely fit some extra spots back there.
Well, I think if the retaining wall is what, almost 50 feet from the residential property line?
Yeah, at that point, yes, it is.
I got to think that any impact on something that's 50 feet away isn't as bad. You know, if we can pick up some parking, maybe a better option. I'm only one board member, but for me, I think that certainly is the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, like Danielle said, we did have an iteration early on where we did have that, but we changed it to try to alleviate a little bit of the scale of the variance by dropping that wall down near the property line.
Anything
That's all
else,
I have.
Tony?
Thank you. No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Planning?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just from a numbers perspective, I didn't count the exact number of offices that were in the existing and proposed buildings. I'm assuming that offices are being used for meetings with people looking for counseling. It's somewhere between between 25 and 30 offices. So just going through the numbers quickly, if you have approximately 24 or 25 employees, if you have an employee in each office, if you have people coming in to meet with their counselors, that's somewhere between 48 and 50 people on site at any given time. Again, we don't know if that's necessarily true 100% of the time, but at any given point that could happen. And right there, you're already exceeding the proposed parking by at least 12 spaces. So looking at it strictly from a use aspect, office use, the parking would be fairly insufficient for an office type scenario.
All right. Thank you. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that could be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Mr. Lipton, do you think you can revise your plans for that extra parking? If you're going to do so, then I won't close the case. I'll leave it open, give you another date to come back. If you're not going to do anything, we'll just close the case.
I would defer to our architect, Mr. Pong.
So you want us to add those 4 land bank spots and then revise the retaining wall to add the 2 additional? So instead of 36, I guess that'll make it 42. Is that?
I think that makes sense. I think maybe if you could perhaps get with Blaze at planning or Peter at planning and maybe see if you can strike a balance between, you know, obviously we want you to be able to do what it is that you're doing to the best of your ability, but we also don't want that to negatively impact the experience that your people that are visiting see, as well as adjacent neighbors. So if you can try and strike a balance, I mean, I think you're close, but I think it's a little too tight for me to be on board with this one. And I think I can get a feeling for the rest of the board that everyone would be much more comfortable if there was a little bit less building and a little bit more parking.
Can I ask a question? I'm a layperson in this in terms of the architecture, the build out and the rules. Would it be possible, and I don't know if this is the forum or if, just as conversational piece, if we took that retaining wall and pulled it back more? So if we're right now making up a number, if right now we're 50 feet away from the neighbor, if we pulled it back to 30 feet, right? And we, I guess, graded it, spent the money to make it, safe or whatever it is, that would give us more, I guess, spots on this right side. Is that something that would be acceptable or is that too large of a project?
For me personally, I always like to see that buffer maintained because that protects the people that, have bought along that residential, bought there expecting that residential buffer to remain. So obviously anything we can do without encroaching on that for me is always better.
Okay.
Okay, so you're gonna revise your plans then?
Yeah, we'll do another rendition where we try to maximize the parking on the site.
Yeah, I would like you to meet with planning to see if they have any suggestions as far as how they can recalculate the parking.
Okay.
Certainly, we appreciate that,
Yeah.
that you're willing to do that.
And let me tell you, we really appreciate all your support. It's not easy what you guys are doing, but we really do appreciate it too. If any input you have to enhance the project, we're more than open to it.
Okay, I have one other question.
Sure.
How much time do you need?
How much time do we need to revise it?
Yeah, you want to come back April 12th, April 26th? May 10th?
No, definitely.
Danielle, how long would it take you to play around? Well, we got to meet with planning, so I guess we could probably even meet with Blaze sometime this week. Danielle, how long do you think it'll take you to revise that?
Pretty quickly. I mean, we've had kind of a bunch of iterations kind of showing exactly what we were speaking of. So as long as it's just kind of revising that parking and no building changes, pretty quick.
When is the next hearing, Mr. Chairman?
Next hearing is the March 22nd, but we're full.
Okay. What's the next
After
one?
that, April 12th.
That would be great. We really appreciate it.
I'll be fine. We'll be ready.
April 12th.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so case 18664 is adjourned to April 12th.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank you so much.
All right.
Be
Thank you
safe
so
and be
much.
well. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good
Good
night.
night. Thank you all.
All right, Blaze.
All righty. The next case on the agenda, case number 18670, B9 Oser Owner LLC, Link Logistics Real Estate LLC, 45 Oser Avenue, Hauppauge. The location of the property, the south side of Oser Avenue, 1,124 feet west of Plant Avenue. The property is zoned LI. The applicant is requesting variances to increase the maximum gross floor area of the lot from 42% to 44%, to increase the building height from 35 feet to 45 feet, to increase the height of a retaining wall from 6 feet to 8 feet for wall E, to reduce the minimum parking from 298 spaces to 175 spaces, to eliminate required landscape islands for a proposed 137,525 square foot warehouse building with 4,800 square feet of office space.
Can I have the applicant, please?
Yes, Brian Weber, Weber Law Group, 290 Broad Hollow Road, Melville, New York, for the applicant.
Good evening.
Good to see you all. Rather see you in person than on Zoom, maybe sometime soon.
Hopefully soon.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm gonna speak briefly about the application. As usual, I have a professional team with me to discuss any of the particulars that the board have, any questions that the board has. I have Mike Biancanello from Bowler Engineering, who's a professional engineer. I have Ethan Shakowski from Atlantic Traffic, who will address the parking variance. And we have two members of the applicant, Tim Aguiar and Daniel Connaughton, who's also on, who can answer any other questions. But this is, I've been before this board twice before for Link Logistics, which is the logistics company that's proposing this particular redevelopment, as well as two previously that this board has heard. I don't know if we can just get the rendering put up just very briefly, so you could just see. It should be familiar to you, the look of this building. We've worked very closely for months with the planning department. You know, Blaze can certainly disagree if he would like. But what this applicant has done is gone through many different versions of the building and the site layout with the planning department. This aesthetic, this rendering, architectural depiction is been worked through very closely with the planning department with some last minute comments as of a couple of weeks ago. Again, upgraded facade, real Class A building, trying to uplift the overall aesthetics of the park. So we've, like I said, we've worked closely with planning to minimize all of the relief that we need. Our gross floor area relief is technically 2%. Realistically, it's actually less than that. We only need on the gross floor area 43.77, but to round up, that's 44%. So it's only a 1.77 to 2% variance. The height variance is 35 feet to 45 feet. I did provide Blaze today and the planning department with a technical analysis as to the actuality of that variance. Mike will get into it in a little greater detail, but the reality is that we don't actually need a height variance to 45 feet. We can accomplish the 36-foot clear height, which is really what we need and what Class A modern warehouse, distribution, and industrial buildings need. We can accomplish that with the highest roof elevation of 42 feet 3 inches. So I know that there was a little bit of concern as to the overall height. What takes us to 42 feet 3 inches is actually the center design feature and the wing design features, those little bump ups. We could even lower that another foot or so. But the majority of the building is actually 40 feet or less than that. But it's just those design elements that bring us to the 42 foot 3 inches. Again, we can get into a greater discussion of that, and Mike will do the same, but you could see even 39 foot 3 marked in red on the elevation there, which is the vast majority of the building. Again, what we're trying to do is just get to that 36 foot clear height interior to the building. There's obviously a little bit of additional height that's needed for roof structure and so forth, and then the design elements, which are really very limited in size. There's one retaining wall variance that we need for just 2 feet, and the parking will be addressed by Ethan in his capacity as our parking analyst. And then the last variance that we need is eliminate landscape island requirements. That is actually somewhat misleading in that we're not actually eliminating landscape islands. We have them. We're just making them smaller than the code requires, and that is simply to be able to satisfy and keep as much parking on site as possible. But we do have landscape islands, and Mike again will just get into a little bit more of that description. We just need to reduce them in size in order to try to maximize the parking. That's my brief introduction. If I can turn it over to Mike Biancanello from Bowler Engineering, who can give you a description of the site, please.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mike Biancanello from Bowler Engineering, 2929 Expressway Drive North, Hauppauge, New York. As Mr.
Excuse me, Mike, can you just spell your last name so we get it correct, please?
Yes, Biancanillo.
Thank you very much.
As Mr. Woodbury previously said, the subject site is being redeveloped. The existing 121,000 square foot building will be raised, and a new 137,525 square feet total area, inclusive of 4,800 square feet of office and about 132,000 square feet of warehouse space will be erected. Other site improvements include a 175 stall parking lot, inclusive of 6 accessible stalls, 21 loading docks. And the site will be accessed by 2 full access proposed curb cuts, one at the northwest corner of the site, one at the northeast corner of the site. The idea being the northwest portion will be used mainly for trucks, and the northeast portion will be used mainly for the employees to access. Also proposed is a 8x22 trash compactor at the western portion of the loading docks. Utility upgrades, including a new transformer that'll be along Oster Avenue, which will be screened so as to hide it from public view. Enhanced drainage system and drainage components, as well as new lighting. The existing landscaping on the site is about 12% of the total area, and it's mostly grass. The proposed application will increase that to about 20% of the total area, and we'll be proposing 124 new trees and 121 new shrubs and grasses, so it'll look a little nicer in terms of the total amount of landscaping and the quality and quantity of the shrubs and trees. The existing site topography is pretty variable across the site. The northwest corner is approximately at elevation 96. The northeast corner is approximately at elevation 102. The southwest corner at elevation 119, and the southeast corner is at elevation 115. The existing site does have retaining walls at the southeast corner and southern property lines that range from 4 to 6 feet in height. The proposed topo condition will also require retaining walls to meet all these existing topographic changes around the site. As Mr. Weber had said, 2 walls are proposed. The first broke up into sections A, B, C, and D. Walls A, B, C, and D are along the southeastern corner and the southern property lines, ranging in height from 0 to 5 feet. These walls are all compliant in terms of maximum height and setback from the property lines. And these walls will be screened with evergreen shrubs, so you won't be able to see them as much. A second wall, which is we call wall section E, which is labeled in yellow here, will require a variance for the maximum height. Approximately 20 feet centered along the building wall will be at elevation 7.5 feet. This wall, the sections of wall that need a variance will be screened and won't be able to be seen from Oser Avenue. The only portions of the wall that will be able to be seen are compliant and will be about 4 feet in height. Mr. Webb had also said we had gone through several iterations with the planning department to eliminate walls and make walls as compliant as possible. And this is what we kind of came up with back in December of last year. Additional relief that Ms. River had mentioned is for the maximum building height, where 35 feet is required. The denial states we're requesting 45 feet. In reality, we only need 42 feet 3 inches, which is 2 feet 9 inches less than we were originally proposing. And from that, we can even go down another foot if absolutely necessary to 41 feet 3 inches. The portions of the roof along Oser Avenue that are 42 feet 3 inches it's only about 24% of the total frontage. And that's more for the architectural aesthetics of the development. We could go down a foot, but it kind of gets, the bump outs get lost a little bit that way. So we're trying to make them stand out and really enhance that architectural feature.
And Mike, just if I may, real quick on that point again, I guess it's kind of it's the positive and the negative of working so closely with planning, in that we came up with a design that basically matches the other designs for 60 Motor Parkway and 88 Parkway Drive South, the 2 other linked proposed buildings, and in coming back to the planning department with designs that are very similar, those also have those raised bump outs for design features. But I guess here it adds a little bit of extra height considering the way the site's going to be developed, and that's really again why we did it. But we can, as Mike said, certainly reduce those top bump outs by another foot or so, which really would make the overall variance. I mean, the variance is relatively minimal to begin with, again, based on just the requirement to get that 36-foot clear height. But we could, like I said, reduce those bump outs a little further by a foot.
Right, it's a very good point. The client's pretty dedicated and committed to really making this building look nice, not just like a cold, dark warehouse. Really make it look architecturally appeasing from the street, and having those 3 sections I mentioned be at 42 feet 3 inches definitely adds to that effect they're going for there. Other variances we are going for is the maximum gross floor area, where the 42% is allowed by code. We're going for denial states 44%, which would be 2% over. That's just rounding up. Really, it's 1.77%, which is pretty minimal. So we don't anticipate any issues with that being allowed. By the board. And then Mr. Weber also said the denial states we're asking to eliminate the landscape island requirement. We are proposing a landscape island requirements. We have 3 shown on the eastern parking lot area. The 2 outer ones are 7 feet wide, or 9 feet is required. The one in the middle does comply with that 9 foot requirement. We kept the other 2 at 7 feet to add additional stalls, which is the last variance we require, where 298 stalls are required, and we're proposing a total of 175. At this point, I can pass the presentation off to Ethan Chukowski from Atlantic Traffic to go a little more in depth on the parking variance.
You know, just real quick before we do that, I'm sorry, I don't know if moderator has a color site plan. But if not, I don't know if we can, Mike, do you have a color site plan that
Yes, I have one up. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to share my screen or not.
are we allowed to share our screen so we can show the color site plan? Which might give better context to the overall site. Mike, you want to give it a try?
Yep.
Might be able to now.
Yep.
Okay, I think that gives us a little bit better content. Not only does it give us the overall aerial, so it shows kind of better in context, but it does show more of what Mike was talking about regarding the landscape islands and the other landscaping that'll be done. All right, so then Mike has just said, we have Ethan Chakosky from Atlantic Traffic. Ethan, I know, has testified before this board as an expert before on parking and traffic related matters. I ask that his testimony be accepted again in this application for as expert testimony. Ethan, if you would please to address the parking variance.
Sure. It's Ethan Chakosky. It's SCHUKOSKE. Licensed professional engineer in state of New York, located at 2929 Expressway Drive North, Hauppauge, New York, with Atlantic Traffic and Design Engineering. So we prepared a parking letter dated February 2021, evaluating the site plan and the proposed parking on site. As I presented before this board, the industry standard for parking demand evaluation is the Institute of Transportation Engineers. They perform studies throughout the country for a variety of uses. For this particular use, we looked at a warehouse inclusive of office space. We found using an average parking rate from the data provided by ITE that for the size of this facility, there'd be a peak parking demand of 4 stalls, whereas we're providing 105 stalls on day one with the opportunity to build 71 additional stalls in the future. So, you know, with the 105 stalls built as shown on the site plan that's being presented, that would leave a reserve capacity of 51 stalls or 48%. You know, given that demand that we found, we think the application is totally suitable from a parking demand standpoint. I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Thank you. Ethan, could you just state clearly one more time what the demand and what's provided, just the numbers?
Yeah, so the demand is using the average parking demand of the studies published by ITE. It's 54 stalls during a weekday peak, and there's 105 stalls being proposed to be built on day one, and 175 stalls total for the application when you include the 71 land bank stalls.
Thank you. Okay, so that concludes our affirmative testimony. Again, I just want to state that that what we've done here is really, again, just try to work with the planning department to minimize the overall variances. We've done things like shift the building from what the original iteration. The building's been shrunk in size. We've provided, again, as Ethan said, land bank parking so that we could add more green space because the anticipated parking demand really is significantly below what we're providing. And again, as this board well knows, with this applicant, now this being the third significant investment in the park by Link Logistics, when we hear that there are concerns, especially on things like on matters that we know are important to the board, such as height, we go back, we look, we see what we can do to come back with a proposal that meets with acceptance. Again, one of the things that we've done simply is look at the overall variance, realize that our height is actually 2 feet 9 inches lower than we're requesting, with the ability to go again another foot lower for the impacts on Oser Avenue if the board decides, so that we we can ultimately have a satisfactory application. Thank you.
And just to add to the height, the most of that building frontage, 74% of it is at 39 feet 6 inches. So really the only parts that are at the 42 feet 3-inch level are for architectural aesthetic reasons. We could go down another foot to 41 feet 3 inches. We're really trying to enhance those entry features.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
I do real quick, Mr. Weber. Operationally, how does this facility work?
So there's no particular tenant assigned yet. I mean, it's likely going to be a warehouse for storage and distribution. There is office space included. So we anticipate it's probably going to be, again, a headquarters. It could be light manufacturing, but a headquarters, very similar to other businesses in the park. We have, as Mike had said, we have access for trucks and separate access for employees and site circulation for that. So again, no tenant names yet, but being designed for office space at 4,800 square feet, overall storage, distribution, potentially manufacturing or assembly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
No, thank you.
Okay, planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18640, LG 1995 LLC.
Can the screen please be unshared?
Oh, sorry about that. How do I stop sharing my screen? Okay. Oh, sorry about that.
No problem.
You ready, Matt?
Yes.
Okay. The next case, 18640 LG 1995 LLC. 1995 Wisconsin Highway in Lake Grove. Location of the property, the south side of Wisconsin Highway, 780 feet east of Alexander Avenue. The property is owned SCB. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum landscaped area from 15% to 6%, to reduce the required distance between two principal buildings from 30 feet to 17 feet, to reduce the required buffer yard to a residential district from 25 feet to 5 feet, to reduce the minimum parking from 260 spaces to 183 spaces, to increase the maximum height of a building from 35 feet to 44 feet, to reduce the minimum parking setback from the side property line from 10 feet to 5 feet, the rear property line from 6 feet to 3 feet, and the residential district line from 10 feet to 5 feet for a proposed 5,200 square foot commercial building, to reduce the front yard setback on Wisconsin Highway from 50 feet to 43 feet for a proposed building canopy, to increase the maximum area of a ground sign from 32 square feet to 58 square feet.
Can I have the applicant, please?
Yes, Brian Weber, Weber Law Group, 290 Broad Hollow Road, Melville, New York, for the applicant. It's not often I get to do multiple hearings in one night, so I do appreciate the opportunity. If I can, I believe we do have a color site plan for this one as well. I really want you to get a good picture here of what's being proposed. It should be available, although maybe not.
Do you have it available for screen sharing?
Oh, sure.
I can pull it up.
Thank you. And I also have a rendering I want to see as well. I wish if we were live in person, I'd have two boards up, but we're not, so I can't do that. So while Mike gets that up, I have Mike Biancanello again from Bowler Engineering as our civil engineer. Frank Filicciotto from Frank, you're going to forgive me because I forgot you're from Creighton Manning. Now that he's moved engineering firms, but Frank has appeared before this board. I know I've done hearings with him as an expert for parking. He's prepared a traffic and parking analysis. I'm going to ask him to address the parking variance. We have Lou Geleno with us as well, who's our architect, and Adam Mann, who's the principal of the applicant, is here as well. So this is a particularly exciting redevelopment. This is currently a City MD and Fortune off retail center. This is really going to be a reinvigoration and a exciting redevelopment. Again, also presented this to the planning department months ago, went through many different versions of comments back and forth. Not ultimately sure actually whether planning gave us more comments or the applicant himself, who continues to improve the property and the plan and add landscaping here or there and upgrade aesthetics when it comes to renderings and what the architecture is going to be. This site's relatively unique in that it borders, as you can see on the west side, which causes some of our variances. That is a state-owned recharge basin. So it is zoned residential, but it's owned by the state, will remain undeveloped. In addition, to our east is Chase Bank. That is actually not part of our application. It's not part of our property. You can see the property line going north to south. However, there is a cross-access and cross-parking easement. So even though we are seeking a parking variance, we actually have the ability to access all of Chase's parking. They have the ability to access our parking as well, but there's cross permission for parking, although in our parking counts, we did not include the Chase parking, and Frank can speak a little bit more to that. What this redevelopment is really going to do, as many of you know and have heard, the hot asset classes right now are industrial, medical, but redevelopment of retail is, I think, really important for the future of Long Island. This will reinvigorate this center. It really enhances the overall marketplace by adding small retail spaces, which don't really exist in this area. We're proposing some additional retail, restaurants, and medical. The only tenant right now, which has been signed, is Just Salad, which is an exciting new salad concept. It's their first location on Long Island. And we're going to significantly increase the landscaping on the site. We're going to add the applicant, is going to add an outdoor patio with seating open to the general public, which, as we know, as we've just seen over the past 2 years during COVID, outdoor seating, the ability to sit outside for whatever purposes is very important to people. We think it'll draw people to the center, make this center exciting. And we're seeing it more and more as people try to upgrade their retail centers. For our overall relief, very briefly, before Mike describes the site in greater detail, our overall landscape area, you can see, and we have some aerials, we have a lot of exhibits we can certainly show you. The town may have some, we certainly have more. The amount of landscaping on the site currently is very minimal. In addition, along Route 347, the state has taken what was a landscaped area with trees. You can see the new property line on this property now. So our landscape variance really comes from the fact that the state took a significant portion of the roadway and reduced and removed the trees that were there. So what the applicant is doing is proposing significant landscaping throughout the site. But that's really the genesis of the landscape variance. The height, which I'll at the end of my remark, actually, if we could now, I don't know if we can show, Blaze, I don't know if you included it in the file, that rendering I sent. If not, I can.
We do have that, but I think at the moment that Mike actually has control of the screen.
I just stopped sharing.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Matt will bring that up momentarily.
Oh, Matt. Okay, great. He has it, but because I don't have to do it then. Matt can then control. It's germane to the height variance. I just want to show it to the board briefly. If not, I can do it.
How are we doing with that, Matt? Got it?
It's like,
Okay, now I'm unmuted. I don't have a rendering for this property, just an elevation.
It was the one that came in late today.
Oh, okay.
I can always pull it up as well, so I have it, if that's easier.
Okay, yes, please.
Oh,
Okay.
so I do. Let's see. Oh, is that it? You see it? Do you see it or not?
I think it might be on your other screen.
How's that?
No,
Okay.
we just see an Explorer page, Bram,
Yeah.
with 4 PDF files.
Okay. How's that?
Okay.
You got it?
Yes.
You see the rendering? I can't tell, so I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
All right, so the rendering here, so again, this will describe why we need the height variance. You see those peaked roofs. This is really a very aesthetically advanced design here. One could think of the East End, the Hamptons, modern and yet respects the waterfront of Long Island's history. The height variants are for the peaked roofs for the Fortunoff and the other unnamed tenant, just not known as of the time. But the Fortunoff is really the absolute top height of the variance that we're seeking. So we could certainly reduce the height overall, but this is a completely commercial corridor. There are no residences that would see this and be negatively impacted at all. And that too also is it's simply for a design feature in trying to get this this site to really be something special. So that's the reason why we have the height variance. The height of the Fortunoff is actually 43 feet 2 inches. Again, we're seeking 44 feet. And then the other high peak is 37 feet 8 inches. That's the one above where it says sign. So that would also require a variance because the height allowed is only 35 feet. But again, we're doing it for a design feature. You can see adjacent to the Just Salad, the very nice outdoor patio that will enable access from the front and back of the center. There's parking in the back of the center, which right now is currently significantly underutilized, and will give an opportunity for people to travel from the back to the front of the center and utilize that rear parking. That also requires us to have a variance, that walkway to reduce the distance between two principal buildings from 30 feet to 17 feet. It's so we can have that very nice outdoor patio. The buffer yard to residential, as I said, had to do with the fact that we are adjacent to a state-owned recharge basin that is zoned residential. We have a parking variance that Frank will speak to. We have existing variances from the existing building regarding certain setbacks. The one to the west having to do with the residential line, again, has to do with the recharge basin. The recharge basin, excuse me, the other parking setbacks are either existing or being modified only slightly. And then the ground sign, I mean, we can certainly go into the discussion. We have a full analysis prepared on the ground sign. Certainly what we're proposing is in keeping with the area. As you well know, this area has multiple jurisdictions: the town of Brookhaven, the village of Lake Grove. We have 4 locations within the town of Smithtown with signage that is either of the same size or larger than our location, as well as a full analysis of all of the signs in the corridor, of which ours certainly is aesthetically pleasing, if not the most aesthetically pleasing, and certainly in keeping with the overall size of the signs in the area. and considering the 347 corridor. So with that, Mike, if you want to just, I guess I can stop sharing this, and if you want to go back to the site plan, you can describe the site using the color site plan, if you would, please.
Yep, I can do that. Thank you, Mr. Mower. And once again, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mike Biancanello, Biancanniello, Bowler Engineering, 2929 Expressway Drive North, Hauppauge, New York, 11749. As Mr. Weber had touched on, the existing site contains about 19,000 square foot Fortunoff and City MD. The proposed development will be further splitting up the Fortunoff building to a 1,928 square foot retail space and a 2,401 square foot, 20 interior seat counter service restaurant. And then we are also proposing a dual tenant 5,198 square foot building with a 34 square foot medical space and a 1764 20 interior seat just salad counter service restaurant space. The site will also contain a trellis covered outdoor seating area on brick pavers that will greatly improve the amenity space and community feel and ability to use the space by the community, not just for people, getting food and eating outside. It's meant for anybody, employees that are taking a break, someone just coming out of one of the medical uses, really just to enhance the overall use of the site. A 183 stall parking lot is proposed just on our side of the center, not including the Chase portion, the stalls there or the actual Chase building itself. So we were proposing 6 accessible stalls on site and 2 electric vehicle charging stations with the potential to add more. The 4 cross-access points between our side and the Chase side will remain, just to maintain the cross-access and ability to share stalls as may be required. The site access is reusing the existing curb cut to Wisconsin Porch F Highway. And as Mr. Weber had said, the DOT has exercised the 9-foot wide taking, and they are now proposing and installing new bike racks and sidewalk improvements. Additional site improvements that are on site are a new trash enclosure at the southwest portion of the site, proposed facade upgrades, a new canopy, and new architectural features to the building, which Mr. Weber had touched on. We're also adding more bike racks to be more in tune with the corridor on 347 being more accessible to pedestrians and bike users. The landscaping will be improved, as Mr. Weber had touched on. Mr. Mann is really committed to improving and continually enhancing landscaping. He's proposing 20 trees, 54 shrubs, and 114 perennials and grasses to, again, just make the site more aesthetically pleasing and user-friendly to any of the tenants. The relief we're seeking is minimum landscape coverage required, where we need 15%. We are providing 6%, and that includes the amount of landscaping we're losing along 347 due to the DOT taking. The maximum building height, where 35 feet is required. We're seeking a maximum of 44 feet for the Fortunoff architectural feature. The actual building heights ceilings, where the usable space is, it does comply. The maximum height is 28 feet 6 inches. The minimum front yard setback from 347, 50 feet is required. We are requesting 43 feet, and that is to the covered sidewalk canopy for the new building. The actual building itself is set back 50 feet and would comply, but the architectural features we're looking for here are what's creating that variance. The minimum distance between the principal buildings, 30 feet is required. We're proposing 17 feet, and that is for a few reasons. One, we can have the nice outdoor seating communal area that we had previously touched on, as well as providing a sidewalk between the building and the western drive aisle, and as well as being able to maintain that row of parking stalls to make the number as parking compliant as possible. The required buffer to the residential district. Again, this is to the western side of the building, of the site. That is a recharge basin owned by the New York State DOT. It is undevelopable, as it might be zoned residence, but it really is not any, it is not and will not have any residential uses in the future. The minimum rear yard parking setback where 6 feet is required, we're providing 3. The rear property line is to the ring road of the Smith Haven Mall. And then we actually provide 14 feet from the face of our row of parking. That curb to the road, the ring road curb is 14 feet. So when you look at it that way, it does comply. It's just one of those weird site scenarios that are creating the variance. And the residential parking setback to the western side, again, where we need 10 feet, we're providing 5, but that is it's zone residence, but it's not a residential use. Additional variances we need are parking variance, where 260 stalls are required. We're providing 183. And again, that is just for our site. It's not including any stalls provided by the Chase or demanded by the Chase. I'll let Mr. Feliciotto touch on that. And the last variance we need is for the maximum area of the ground sign, where 32 feet is required. We're requesting 58. The initial sign we had proposed was around 100 square feet. Me, Mr. Weber, and Mr. Mann had worked with the planning department, and we ultimately reduced it by almost 50% what we originally wanted, to a square footage of about 58 square feet from the original, give or take 100 square feet. At this point, I'd like to pass off the application to Mr. Feliciotto, who can go a little more in depth on the parking variance.
Thank you, Mike. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Frank A. Feliciotto, F as in Frank, I-L-I-C-I-O-T-T-O. I'm with Creighton Manning Engineering, offices at 145 Main Street in Ossining, New York. Just for the record, licensed professional engineer in the state of New York, 19 years of experience in the field. I have testified in front of this board, but as Bram said, it's been a few years, so it's nice to be back in front of you, and I appreciate the opportunity to present here this evening. Without being overly duplicitous, I just wanted to reiterate a few things regarding the site plan that fold into our traffic and parking study. The ad here really comes down to about 5,200 square feet of new building area. There are new activations proposed for the existing building on the facility, but there's no increase in square footage beyond the 5,200 square foot building on the far west end of the site. So really what we did with the parking was look at how these new tenants and their parking demands would relate to a site in the future which has less parking than it does today. So you have a projected increase in parking demand converging with a reduction in supply, and our parking study sought to evaluate whether or not that would be feasible. So as Mike pointed out, 210 existing spaces on the property now, and we're going down to 183. So a reduction of 27 spaces as a result of the development on the west end of the site, which will consume some of the existing parking in that area. And again, no credit taken for the Chase Bank use and the property there, but there's approximately 50 spaces on that property. And to the average driver or customer of this center, that bolded black line that runs vertically on the page is invisible to that person. They don't know really where they're parking and who owns what parcel. There's a perpetual agreement between these two property owners. So there's a lot more parking available in reality, but we're analyzing the 183 in the future that will be available to the subject site. What we did last year was we went out and did parking counts at the subject location in order to understand the current use of the site. And we found generally that throughout the course of a day, midday period, during lunch, late afternoon, early evening during dinner and the PM commute home. And then on Saturday during the midday, this site is well over parked. The utilization of parking is beneath 25% during the peak hours. There's a lot of excess parking, in other words, on this site. So we looked at parking on several days and during several hours of those days and found that utilization is less than 25%. leaving over 160 spaces open in the current situation. So what we wanted to do was figure out, okay, can that 160 space reserve that we have today, can that accommodate the two counter service restaurants, the medical or dental office at the far west end, and the small retail facility or space rather adjacent to the Fortune off backyard store, along with the existing demand. And what we found is based on industry standards, and there was another gentleman here this evening that introduced the Institute of Transportation Engineers, the ITE. That is an industry standard authority really that produces parking and traffic data for engineers like myself to use and to inform on what a particular land use is expected to generate in terms of parking. When we looked at that data source, we found that the additional land uses would generate during the peak times an additional 104 parked vehicles. When you add the 46, which is what we observed in the existing condition with 104, we arrived at an approximate peak worst case demand of 150 occupied spaces, leaving at least 30 unused spaces in the future. And that is a worst case scenario. That assumes that every single use on the site is peaking at the exact same time, which is not always going to be the case. There's going to be periods throughout the day where some of these uses are experiencing less demand and the parking will be lower. But in general, in order to provide the worst case scenario, we did it that way, and we still have a 30 stall at least reserve supply. What this doesn't factor are a few things. Number one, the idea of internal capture, which is essentially a fancy way of saying I'm a customer of more than one tenant. So I may be on this site to go to a dental appointment, and maybe afterwards I'll grab lunch. The analysis we performed assumes discrete customers for every use, meaning there's no cross-pollination or double dipping, so to speak. But we all know when we're at commercial centers like this, it's common to see people using more than one or patronizing more than one tenant. And in addition, again, with the Chase Bank parcel, approximately 50 spaces are available there. And I looked up what a peak demand would be for a bank with drive-through based on the ITE data, and the maximum demand for a drive-in bank is only 15 parking spaces. So there's a good chance that there's a large availability of parking on that lot to accommodate any spillover, although that is unlikely as a result of this project. So long way of saying the 183 spaces that are proposed will be adequate to accommodate the full tenancy of what is before you this evening. I just wanted to point out that in addition to the reference to the DOT, we did approach the DOT at the beginning of this project relative to the driveway on Route 347, which is staying the same. But typically when you front on a DOT roadway, you want to solicit feedback from DOT. We approached DOT and were able to obtain a letter of no interest via email from DOT last October, which confirms that no highway work permit is needed as a result of this project. So they've taken the stance that what's existing is satisfactory, and they're not looking for this applicant to do any mitigation or any changes to their highway system as a result of this project. So just wanted to point that out. I think it's germane given that there'll be more traffic using the state highway and the access point, but the DOT has evaluated it and is not concerned with it. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. No, that was a lot of information, but happy to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Is that the end of your presentation, Mr. Weber?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay, fine.
just one of the quick things, excuse me, just to addition to Frank's point, if you could see on the on the rendering wall, excuse me, on the site plan while we're looking at it, just to further the point of the excess availability of parking. You see the rectangled area with the white diagonal lines. That was actually additional parking, about 4 spaces or so that we had on there. But at the request of the planning department, those 4 spaces have been removed, and potential future cross access at that drive aisle with the mall has been agreed to by the applicant. So I think it just goes further to the fact, yes, correct, right there. Thank you so much. It just goes further to the fact that we actually even had some additional parking, but the planning department would rather see future potential cross access with the mall in that location. So had us remove those parking spaces from the site. Again, we were requested, again, the applicant here really is very much in the details of every aspect of this plan. He was asked to agree to potential future cross access. He did. He was asked to reach out to the mall and discuss that with the mall. He did. The mall ultimately will decide whether they will agree or not, but we have agreed at the planning department's request to that potential future cross access. That's the only last thing I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
Mr. Weber, what is that other hashed area to the east of, I guess, what would be the
This area,
yeah, exactly.
that's for loading and trash pickup.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on the board? No. Planning?
I just have one question, and it's really for clarification. It's either for Mike or for Frank. I know that there was mention of the taking along 347 because of the 347 project to expand. And I'm just curious, the color rendering that's up on the screen now, I'm seeing what looks like 2 eastbound lanes converting into 3, which is what currently exists out there at that intersection between Moriches and 347. This rendering does not show the potential widening of the lanes going from 2 to 3 at this point. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. How much impact do you think it's going to have on the site, particularly around where the access point is on 347 when the state comes in and they start doing that road widening?
Mr. Donadio, are you referring to just during the construction period, like the friction caused by them being workers there and vehicles performing it, or the finished product?
Well, it's always a concern when they're doing the construction because that does create traffic issues. But ultimately, when the project is done and we're looking at the finished project, how much of an impact will that have on the existing front yard and the landscaping that's shown in that color rendering? What would it be reduced to in terms of where the property boundary line is? Roughly, just roughly.
I think I'll take that one, Fergie. Mr. Donadio, are you asking what the landscape buffer will be from the new property line to the DOT taking?
Yes.
I believe it's now going to be reduced to 1 foot, and that's obviously not to the roadway. That is to the bike lane and
Right.
sidewalk.
Okay.
Right, because that's ultimately the scope of work, right? It's a sidewalk
Right.
and bike lane.
Yeah, I just want the board to be aware of it, not because obviously the state is doing it, that we can't do anything about that. I just want the board to be aware of it so that they'll have an idea of what the finished product along 347 will look like.
Yes, our stop bar to exit the site and make that right turn, it is already on our side of the taking and property line. So like we'll have to remove it and repave it or anything like that once the work has been completed.
Okay, thank you.
Just one other point too, I wanted to emphasize, I'm not sure if this was mentioned, but I'm going to highlight just a route here. This is a pretty cool component of the plan. We're proposing a connection to the proposed bike path that the DOT is proposing that will lead directly to that outdoor shared seating area between the 2 buildings. So if you're on your bike or walking, you have a nice desire line to, activations that we're proposing on the site. And it will be striped, and there'll be ramps, obviously, to get you from the sidewalk or from the pavement up to the sidewalk where the buildings are.
That's correct. We are proposing 5 bike racks in front of the new proposed building, which ties in with the work the DOT is doing with the addition of the bike lanes. This way it'll get a lot of use out of the communal amenity area between the buildings, as well as being able to function without really causing any danger to the bike riders or pedestrians.
All right, thank you.
All right, is there anyone in the audience that'd like to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not seeing any hands.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Have a good
Thank
night
you.
for your time. Stay well.
Good night to you.
Enjoy your night.
Good night.
And that concludes our meeting for tonight.